What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Over the weekend, information started to leak out online around Cory Barlog's game within Sony Santa Monica, and then we basically found out the entire direction of the game, but there's still a lot of questions around exactly what they're going to be doing here, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Pokémon Day. That happened, of course, last week, and the reactions have been going crazy over Generation 10 Pokemon and exactly what they showed. And then we'll also be talking about PSSR, the upscaling technique for the PS5 Pro, because Sony decided to surprise everyone on Friday and announced that not only is it coming out next month, but there's a game right now you can check it out in. All that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Bluepoint and FromSoft and a report that was dropped on Friday. A lot of stuff happened on Friday. Jason Schreier, though, issued a report kind of going over some of the fallout from the entire closure announcement for Bluepoint and what they were doing basically in their final year. And yes, the big highlight was that Bloodborne was pitched again, a remake, and it turns out Sony was okay with it because the money made sense, the numbers were there, and the math was mathing then in that case. But FromSoft said no. And this has now led to a newfound speculation, because before it was, okay, was it Sony or FromSoft holding it up? Well, apparently it's FromSoft. So why is that? And that's kind of where we are now, with some thinking that, okay, well, maybe FromSoft wasn't as thrilled with what Bluepoint did with Demon Souls, or maybe as a studio, they want to make sure they are laser focused on working to put out a Bloodborne remake and not necessarily pass it off completely to Bluepoint. Either way, though, at least we know those details, but at this time, Bluepoint seems to still be heading for closure. I say seems because one other part of that article did mention that other publishers are calling about Bluepoint, so who knows what could happen going into March, but we will have to keep our eyes on this one. Also, the Marathon Server Slam did happen over the weekend, and we, of course, were able to see how the numbers were going on SteamDB, and that was a pretty big talking point. A lot of debate around how well Marathon did for a number of reasons. So, for example, you can see over on SteamDB now, it's sitting at 55,000 people playing the Server Slam. It did peak all time at 143,000 people. And this is kind of similar, if you look at it, to Arc Raiders, how their initial beta went when they were leading up to launch. And the thing with this is people are looking more or less at the bounce rate. So people who play it and then stop playing it and don't necessarily come back, so that, say, that all-time peak is reached again a day or two later, specifically over the weekend. But the way I'm looking at it, and kind of how I was, well, I did play it a bit, and it didn't necessarily click with me completely. I'm a little concerned about how this game is going to do early on, because like the UI, the menu system is just not great at all on console. Maybe on PC it's better where you have a mouse that you're moving around, but it was cluttered, and it was menu after menu after menu that looked kind of confusing, and you almost get lost in the UI. And then when playing the game, ammo was an issue. Didn't really find a lot of that, and didn't really run across many players either. But it does seem that Bungie is reacting to a lot of this and saying things like, hey, we'll drop more teams in. Maybe we'll figure out the ammo situation. We're going to work on the menu system. So these are growing pains that they basically have to go through while working with the community on it. So we'll see next weekend, though, when you actually have to spend $40 to get in. I think it'll have a decent enough launch. The question's going to be if people do end up sticking with it and continue to buy in down the road like we've seen with Arc Raiders. Oh, and now shifting to a game that has had big time success on SteamDB, and that's Resident Evil Requiem, which has had just a massive launch outright, as it was selling out physically at major retailers for the different consoles with PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch 2. And if you look over on Steam, it had an all-time peak concurrent of 344,000 users. I'm thinking Capcom's gonna announce numbers for this thing pretty soon, and I think it's gonna be pretty big, like several millions of copies. So I mean, look, the game is great. I'm playing through it. I'm more than halfway through now, and I'm going to be wrapping it up here in the next day or two, because when I sit down and play it, it is one of those games that grabs you and just you'll lose a couple of hours in one sitting without even really thinking about it, and I'm having a blast. So, hey, good news there for Resident Evil Requiem. Probably one of the best Resident Evils that Capcom's released in quite some time, so it's good to see at least the market is saying the same thing. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Cory Barlog's secret game, because it does appear that it has leaked early. And I say leaked early because apparently it's going to be shown around the E3, the summer Game Fest time. So we're thinking May, June, July, somewhere in there. We're not too far off. But what really sparked this whole thing, kicked it all off, was a LinkedIn post that was spotted and then posted over on Reset Area, you can see. And this is from a senior writer, all right? And they were updating their profile and stuff naturally, as it looks like their time there ended September 2025 at Sony Interactive Entertainment. And they say helped shape narrative vision and creative direction at Sony Santa Monica Studio for a new franchise within the God of War universe, developing characters, storylines, and original lore that expanded the acclaimed IP. And this does appear to be linked then to Cory Barlog's game. And we already heard, according to Jason Schreier, it was a game that would feel like a new IP, but wasn't. As in, it is based in a world that Sony Santa Monica, I guess, has worked in before. And there's two. There's God of War and there's Connecticut. And as much as I thought it would have been fun to see them try to do something in Connecticut, the obvious move would have been, let's continue to build out God of War, which has only gotten bigger and bigger with each release, mainline release anyway. Certainly what's happened here with the Norse saga, how things have just skyrocketed for this franchise. Now we have the trilogy remake coming up, and with Cory Barlog also apparently telling some kind of original story within this universe, people started to speculate like crazy as to what direction would he take it, who would be the main character. Well, then Nate decided to just randomly show up and say, okay, here we go. The game is set within the God of War universe, and the lead character will be Faye. Gameplay is said to differ from the Norse God of War games with more of a focus on action. The current plan, reveal this year, release first half of 2027, barring any delay, and obviously that can happen. This is the way it is with game development. It's very fluid. And certainly with a game like this coming out of Sony Santa Monica, they have a certain quality level that they want to hit before they do end up going gold and then releasing it. Sometimes even then they push it back an extra month or two. We've seen it multiple times. But the big focus now, of course, Faye would be the main character. And that was one of the characters that people were speculating on that would have at least a path to having an entire game that makes sense to tell their story. So Faye is Kratos' wife, and I'll let you play God of War 2018 and Ragnarok if you have not yet, but long story short, there is actually a pretty large gap in time that could be filled in with Faye as the main character and you playing through it. And here's the thing with Faye, she's a giant, and she is a strong warrior who actually had the Leviathan axe before Kratos. And there are stories about her fighting with Thor and all kinds of other crazy stories. So I do think there could be a really, really interesting action-packed game that could be told here. And I wonder about the gameplay changes, because the Norse saga is a much more personal, up-close, over-the-shoulder kind of action. It's slower, I'd say, than what we had with the Greek saga. So with this, I wonder if it will harken more back to the original trilogy for God of War, more of a zoomed out camera angle, much faster and destructive. That's kind of the way Faye was described throughout those games, and while it was a little different in certain flashbacks, I just think there's a lot of cool stuff that they could explore here with a story for Faye in the God of War universe. So I guess we're going to look towards the next couple of months, that E3, not E3 time, June maybe, to have a big grand reveal for this, see how it all looks specifically with the gameplay side, and then we head into 2027 with its release. Next up, let's talk about Pokemon Winds and Waves from Pokémon Day. Now, there was a lot of stuff that was announced there, and clearly the big thing coming out of it that people want to discuss is Gen 10, but I wanted to quickly go over basically all the stuff that was announced there briefly and then spend a little bit of time here on Gen 10. So let's start from the top, which I did like the opening. It was like a bunch of title screens from the last 30 years, and then there was a nice compilation that they went through, and it was very nostalgic and fun to see there in one big collage. Then they showed the game music collection, which is a mini original Game Boy that I thought was a Game Boy Classic for at least 10 to 20 seconds. And then they showed the functionality. You swap cartridges and it changes music. There's 45 different songs. It's already out, but go figure, it's sold out. It was going for the price of $70, and now it's more than triple that on eBay. Good stuff. Okay, then we have the Pokemon World 2026 Championships. That's in San Francisco at the Chase Center. Pokemon XP event, August 28th to the 30th. The Pokemon TCG, the Mew and Mewtwo, that's coming in 2026 with a simultaneous worldwide release. Then we had updates for Pokemon Go, Pokemon Masters EX, that's celebrating a 6.5-year celebration. Pokemon Cafe Remix, Pokemon Sleep, there are new missions out now. Pokemon Unite, it's getting Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno. The Pokemon Trading Card Pocket game, that's Paldean Wonders, that's out now. Then we go into NSO with the GameCube. Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, that's going to release at some point this month in March. So, I mean, honestly, it could be at any point in time. You'll just see Nintendo randomly announce on their social media accounts, hey, it's out now. That's what I'm expecting since they've already made us aware that it's coming out this month. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green had a spotlight here. It's already out, but they did say that home support is planned, so good news there. And then Pokemon Champions, Scarlet and Violet, ZA, so you can go between all of those. And there's been some discussion around a few changes that have happened in this game with a bad words list apparently that was added. There's also some telemetry where they're able to track different things you're doing in the game, probably just for stats and just feedback without you actually having to say anything to them. But one of the biggest things is at the end of the game, you do get certain items that allow you to go after legendary Pokemon that you would normally have had to go out to different events with your Game Boy cartridge. So, I mean, that's actually a nice addition to have in the game. Pokemon Champions also shown here. It's out April 2026 on the Switch. Mobile will be getting its release later this year. And then Pokemon Legends ZA, the Mega Dimensions DLC with Mega Garchomp Z. You can claim the gift to encounter. And then there's Pokemon Pokopia, or Pokopia. I learned now that it's Pokopia or whatever. So either way, though, it's out this week, and so March 5th. And they showed off a few things when it comes to the multiplayer. I think this game's gonna be pretty big, but I'm not the big Minecraft build up your town farming person. Still though, I get it. I think it's gonna do well. But then Pokemon Winds and Waves closed out. They showed the 3 starters, Brout, Pombon, Gekwa. I'm trying to still figure out who I'm going with. I know a lot of people are looking at the Fire Dog, but Brout just looks annoyed. And that seems like the kind of energy I'd want for my entire journey there. It definitely looks a lot better than Scarlet and Violet, although the bar is pretty low for that. But I mean, let's face it, it just does. Like, this looks like a generational leap, and that's what we were expecting. With the water looking great, like there's actual waves. The draw distance looks good. Different biomes were shown: lava, forest, tropical, and it looked quite dense at each one that they showed. And then also it's going to be underwater. It looks like that was like the last shot that they had in the trailer. Global simultaneous release though in 2027. It is also a Switch 2 exclusive. That seemed to, I don't know, get some pushback online, which is weird to me because I think it also would have gotten pushback if it was on the Switch 1 as well and looked worse. I would prefer them at this point go for the Switch 2 because it's coming out in 2027. We don't know if it's early 27 or late 27. I'm kind of thinking it's gonna be first half of next year. So we're probably a year, maybe a little more than a year out. But like eventually they're going to have to move on to a Switch 2 like exclusive for the Pokemon franchise. And Nintendo, I'm sure, also wants to be able to push systems out there. Pokemon is one of the biggest franchises they do have a part in. So yeah, why not try to move people to the new system with Gen 10? But Pokemon Winds and Waves certainly has my attention going into next year. That has left people wondering, what does Nintendo have in store for us for this holiday season? What's their big release? I think they'll have that one covered, and I'm still looking right now at Mario Day, just in case Nintendo has a bit of a surprise for us there, because I do feel like there will be a 3D Mario that will hold up their holiday season at the end of 2026, but we'll have to wait and see for that one. Next up, let's talk about PSSR 2.0, although Sony's not calling it 2.0, they're just calling it Enhanced PSSR, which is their PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, or their advanced upscaling technique specifically used in the PlayStation 5 Pro. We've heard that there is an update coming at some point in 2026, but they decided to surprise us a bit here because there is a game that's out right now that is using this new upscaling or upgraded upscaling technique, and it's like the hottest game currently as well. Let's take a look though. This is over on PlayStation blog. Mark Cerny put this out there saying, today we're excited to announce that an upgraded version of PSSR will be rolling out globally to PS5 Pro players in the coming weeks. We are happy to share that Resident Evil Requiem shipping today is the first title to use this more advanced PSSR, which is helping to keep both frame rate and image quality high. We look forward to more news in March when multiple existing games upgrade to the improved PSSR. There will also be a system software update at that time. Selecting enhanced PSSR image quality in settings on PS5 Pro will allow you to experience the new PSSR with any PS5 Pro games that currently support PSSR. Once the system update releases next month, try it and see. Some games may have noticeably crisper graphics. Mark Cerny really likes the word crisper. He says that a lot. But I mean, I guess if you look at the image quality, yeah, Resident Evil Requiem looks crisper or crisp. It's a very clean and sharp looking game. I think sharp is probably the word I would use to really describe it, but the noticeable difference I think is more so with the hair. So they have like the hair strand technology they use with the PS5 Pro, and you'll just see strands of hair flowing around. And PSSR, as they showed in the images in its original form, we'll say 1.0, did struggle with that and it looked kind of blurred and choppy, whereas now with this newer enhanced PSSR, it looks a lot better. And here's the thing, the entire image itself looks really, really good. So it's something you do have to see in person, obviously, and PSSR has had a lot of growing pains to where, I'll admit, at times you look at the PS5 Pro and you go, I don't know why this thing exists, other than what we're seeing now, which is them to work on it with the help of early adopters. Yes, if you have one, sorry, you're an early adopter. And then eventually get to a position where it is in a good spot and it shows off games like Resident Evil Requiem very, very well. I mean, it looks super impressive in action. And then when we go up to the PlayStation 6, I would assume, as we have, they say 50 or so PSSR games that will be enhanced from this, it'll just be across the board, as that will be something that's baked into every single system. Not just, I mean, I won't say a handful of PS5 Pros, but a small section of the PlayStation user base at this time who have PS5 Pro systems. So I guess a nice little preview or window, a look into what could be possible for next generation, but it's pretty impressive, and I'll be curious to see the effects of the enhanced PSSR on other games as we get later into March when they push that update. And in our last bit of news, we're going back to God of War, but not the God of War games, the God of War Amazon series, because an image went out that apparently is our first look on set or of production for the series, and there have been some concerns around the idea of it being live action and not just animated, because obviously animated just have more control over how everything looks. Well, here's the image that was put out, and it looks off. It looks very strange, and it's not just me who thought that, because everyone's looking at this going, hold on, is this even real? People are saying, oh, it looks like a bad cosplay. Some are saying it looks AI generated, and you know it's bad when that's the case. And you know what? It very well could be, because it's Amazon, it's Prime Video, it's them just putting out marketing, and maybe they're thinking, oh, we have their likenesses, we might be able to say, or ask AI, put them as Kratos and Atreus in a forest setting while he's aiming up, you know what I mean, like prompt that up. But we don't have confirmation that it is AI. However, that's not exactly great for the image they put out when people jump to that conclusion. However, when I look at Kratos, and this is Ryan Hurst, okay, and he did respond, we'll get to that in a second, but the beard doesn't look as thick, I guess, as it should, and his expression, he almost looks, I don't know, a mixture of confused and concerned, whereas Kratos just looks very scorned usually. He also has yellow eyes, and almost his entire face comes to a point right in front of him. So it doesn't look right. I mean, I think Atreus just looks a little too young here, although they can play around with the age and time period and stuff, I'm sure. So this could be jumping around in the timeline and stuff for the show even. And it's strange because Ryan Hurst responded, who was playing Kratos, and he said, "Don't believe everything you see on the internet, kids. I don't really know how to respond to that because this is from Amazon's Prime Video account. If this was an image that leaked out, quote unquote, and they're like, this is a production image that we happened to get off their servers, or someone was there and they took a picture and it's just like really, really good quality, then I'd go, well, okay, maybe it just, they were messing around. It wasn't quite right. This is an official thing that they put out. There's an entire press release that goes along with this. They have a high resolution image you can download off of their press site. So I don't know what you're supposed to believe here because it's from Amazon. So maybe the situation of it's going to look better in motion than in a still, but not a lot of confidence now after seeing this. So here's hoping they put out maybe some additional shots because that can be done in the more immediate. It's going to be a bit until I think we get to the official trailer, and maybe that can work to alleviate some of the concerns around people who say it should have just been animated in the first place. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, have you played Bloodborne? 55% say no, 45% say yes. And here's the thing, I do think there are a lot of people who may even look into it if there was a Bloodborne remake, because on the PS5, it's locked at 30, and you know, obviously, they could lift the frame rate cap and immediately be 60 frame. I mean, in its state, at that resolution, it might be 120. Although the game logic could be broken by frame rate, it's hard to say. I know there are mods and emulation that does run at a higher frame rate, but realistically, if they're not going to do a remake, I still think the best thing they can do is like a patch to lift the frame cap, or even like a very quick remaster. I think is something where, yes, FromSoft and Sony need to eventually come to terms and figure it out, whatever is holding it up, get that sorted, and then do a big release for it with a full remake and put a lot of resources into it, because I do think it could be a game that, yes, ends up on the PlayStation 6 years and years into the future, but there'll probably be a lot of people who go, I guess I'm buying a PS6. And we'll finish up with the comments of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Tenno Swords, who says, you don't have to be remotely smart to figure this out. The second Steam said they're putting a box under your TV, and Xbox said their next box will also have Steam. PlayStation to PC ports were absolutely done. I'm sure that was something that was kicked around as, hey, if we keep moving these games to PC, the Steam box will play them. The next Xbox that runs Windows that can run Steam will play them. What does that mean for our brand and our image? Yeah, I get that. But I actually think the biggest thing, the top of the board in the meeting room is eventually we have to compare ourselves to ourselves. The PS5 generation is going to be very difficult to overcome if we can't reach the same number of consoles sold, and it's a good chance that the PS6 is not going to be a cheap system. As in, I mean, $600, I think at this point would be impressive for them to get it to, but I think it's going to be closer to that PS5 Pro territory for price. Like $700 might be what it launches at without a disk drive. So they have to do a lot to compel people to buy into it, whether it's upgrading from the PS5, which they want to move people to it, or get people to buy in for the first time into their ecosystem. And a lot of that's going to come down to this box has games that none of the other boxes do. So I think that's where Sony is now, realizing they need to do that and continue to keep their user base high, because yeah, they can also make a lot of money off of live service games like Fortnite, but they need a significant number of people playing Fortnite or some of these other live service games on their box in their ecosystem to make that happen. So yeah, exclusives seems to be Sony's strategy, I think, going forward. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to check out a story about how physical games are making a comeback. It's an interesting situation. I'll leave that right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.